41 years old, 14th season with a car capable of winning, second in the World Championship, and on Sunday evening at Zandvoort, after finishing fourth in a race he could not win, Lewis Hamilton picked up a microphone and said something that has almost nothing to do with the Dutch Grand Prix. "My goal," he said, "is to try and lead this team to the championship, and we've got some work to do for sure. Lead this team, not drive for this team, not help this team. Lead it." That is a sentence a driver chooses. Nobody asks a question that produces it by accident, and Hamilton has been giving press interviews since 2007. He knows what the word carries in Italian, and he knows what it carries in a garage at Maranello. So let's take it seriously, because it was said in front of a live camera on a day when he had every reason to say something smaller. Here is where that sentence came from, because context is doing a lot of work. Sunday at Zandvoort was not a triumph. Hamilton started fifth. He spent 8 laps of the middle stint stuck behind his own teammate on fresher tires, said so on the radio in a tone nobody could mistake, and finished fourth after failing to find a way past George Russell across the closing laps. He came out of the summer break 50 points behind Kimi Antonelli, with 12 rounds remaining. On that afternoon, the safe answer to any question is that the team worked hard and we move on to the next one. Instead, he gave the full accounting, and I want to read it properly because everyone quoted the complaint and almost nobody quoted the rest. He started with the car. "We brought a bit of an upgrade here," he said. "We're just chipping away at it all the time. This first half of the season, we've been losing 3 to 5 tenths on the straight depending on which track we go to, and that's a hard deficit to overcome just through the corners, but we are close." Then the frustration. "But today was definitely frustrating for me. I'm here to win, and I really believe that this team can win. We couldn't win this race, but to win championships, you have to pick up every point. And the last few races have been difficult with penalties and stuff. And then today, I lost several seconds behind Charles, which I think ultimately would have made the difference at the end, but we'll take it offline." And then the line. "My goal is to try and lead this team to the championship, and we've got some work to do for sure." Subscribe before we go further, because what Ferrari does with this claim gets tested at the next round, and I would rather you saw the setup. And put your country in the comments. I ask every week, I read all of them, and it is consistently the most interesting thing down there. Now, why does that sentence matter more than the complaint that preceded it? Because of what it costs him to say. Complaining about traffic is free. Every driver on the grid complains about traffic. It commits you to nothing. It expires by Tuesday, and it makes no claim on anybody else's position. Saying you intend to lead a team is not free. It is a statement with a bill attached, and the bill arrives in 3 places at once. The first is the other side of the garage. Charles Leclerc has been at Ferrari since 2019. He is not a support driver. He has never been treated as one. And at Zandvoort, he finished second in Saturday's sprint, ahead of the reigning world champion. When one driver says he intends to lead the team, the other driver hears it, and he hears it in the same news cycle you do. The second is the pit wall. Fred Vasseur has spent this entire season declining to publicly rank his 2 drivers, and he declined again on Sunday. Asked about the situation between them, he answered on strategy. "We had a group of people in our shadow," he said, describing Leclerc's stop. And on Hamilton, that at one stage they were trying to go to the end, and that probably we lost 1 second with Charles. Those are technical answers. They are honest, and they carefully do not touch the hierarchy question. Hamilton's sentence puts the hierarchy question back on the table in public, whether Vasseur wanted it there or not. The third is Maranello itself, which has a long and unsentimental history with drivers who arrive and describe how the team should work. So this is not a throwaway. It is a positional claim, made on the record, at 41, by a man who is second in the standings and has just watched his own car cost him a podium. Now follow the chain. What does that claim actually rest on? It rests first on the standings. Hamilton went into Zandvoort second in the Drivers' Championship, ahead of Russell, behind Antonelli by 50 points. That is not a courtesy position. In a season with new regulations, a new generation of car, and a genuinely reset competitive order, he is the highest-placed Ferrari driver in the title fight. Whatever else is argued about, that part is on the timing sheet. It rests, second, on this weekend specifically, and this is the part that got buried. Hamilton had a bad Friday. His sprint qualifying went wrong after setup changes, and he described the car as completely different, saying he needed to figure out what went wrong. He qualified 7th for the sprint and finished 7th. On any ordinary weekend, that is where the story ends. Instead, Ferrari tore the setup up before Saturday's main qualifying, and Hamilton found the car. "I'm so much happier with the car, honestly," he told Formula1.com. "It's crazy. We changed a lot of things, but it doesn't really look that big. But the difference it makes in the car is unbelievable." He qualified 5th, ahead of Leclerc, having been nowhere all weekend. Then in the race he passed Piastri, ran a long stint with a genuine tire offset, and spent the final 15 laps attacking Russell for a podium on a circuit where the entire paddock agrees you cannot overtake. He was still attacking on the last lap. That is what a claim to leadership looks like when it is backed by a weekend, rather than a press conference. Then the timeline moves, and here is the part that makes this a story rather than a quote. Because there is a second half to that sentence, and almost nobody read it. We've got some work to do for sure. Work to do by whom? Not by him. He had just spent the afternoon dragging a car that concedes half a second a lap in a straight line into a podium fight. The work is not his. The work is the 3 to 5 tenths on the straight that he named with a number, and it is the 8 laps in the middle of the race when his own team did not resolve a situation that Mercedes resolved in 1. Because that comparison happened on the same afternoon, in the same race, and it is the cleanest thing in this whole story. Mercedes had George Russell running second and Kimi Antonelli behind him on fresher tires with a live shot at Lando Norris. On lap 66, with 7 laps left, they made the call. Russell questioned it on the radio. He moved over. Both drivers publicly agreed with the decision afterwards. Both finished on the podium. Ferrari, in the same race, took from lap 35 to lap 43 to resolve the equivalent situation. I am going to be fair here, because the two are not identical. Mercedes had a clean binary with an obvious target ahead. Ferrari was juggling an undercut threat behind, traffic in front, and an open question about whether Hamilton was stopping again at all, which Vasseur said explicitly. Taken individually, in a debrief room, every Ferrari decision on Sunday is defensible. But notice what the difference actually is. Mercedes was fast because Mercedes has already decided who its championship car is. That decision was made weeks ago, in a room, so on lap 66 all that remained was execution. Ferrari was slow because Ferrari has not decided, and therefore had to decide in real time, at 200 kilometers an hour, while the tires went off. Which brings the whole thing back to Hamilton's sentence. Lead this team is not a boast about pace. Read against the afternoon he had just lived through, it is a request for exactly that decision to be made. Here is the question for you, and I want it as a vote, because you split almost exactly down the middle on this last time. Should Ferrari now designate a lead driver for the rest of this season, given that one of its cars is second in the World Championship and the other is not, and accept the internal cost? Or should it keep both drivers free to race, protect the constructors' campaign and the goodwill in the garage, and accept the laps that costs on track? Like this video for designate, comment for keep it open. There is no free answer, which is the only reason it is worth asking. Subscribe while you are there, because the arithmetic is next. Convert it, because leadership claims are cheap unless they are attached to numbers. 50 points behind Antonelli, 12 rounds remaining. Hamilton has already done this arithmetic out loud in the same interview. To win championships, you have to pick up every point. Every point. That is a specific claim about method, and it is the correct one at this deficit. 50 points is not a gap you close with one win. It is a gap you close through accumulation, which means the difference between 4th and 3rd on an afternoon, your car cannot win, is not a detail. It is the mechanism. 3 points on Sunday. Multiply it across 12 weekends and you have the entire margin. Now put that against the 3 to 5 tenths on the straight. If your car concedes that much in a straight line, you cannot overtake to recover a lost position. You either have track position or you do not. Which means every point in the accumulation strategy has to be defended at the moment it is available, not recovered later. There is no later. That is why the 8 laps mattered, and it is why he said the word lead. There is a structural reading of this too, and it is more interesting than the driver rivalry framing everybody else is using. Ferrari's problem is not that it has 2 fast drivers. Every top team has 2 fast drivers, and that is a good problem. Ferrari's problem is that the Constructors' Championship and the Drivers' Championship pull in opposite directions right now. The Constructors' campaign says maximize both cars, never take points from either. The Drivers' campaign says concentrate everything behind the one car, that is actually in the fight and accept the cost. Vasseur cannot serve both at full strength. Nobody could. And every week he does not choose, the choice gets made by circumstance, which on Sunday meant it got made by 8 laps of dirty air. Now let me put the argument against Hamilton properly, because he does not get a free run on this channel either. He is 50 points down. That is not a small deficit, and it is not obviously recoverable. There is a reading of Sunday's sentence that is less flattering, which is that a driver who has just been beaten by his teammate's sprint result and held off by his former teammate for a podium is asserting a status the results do not yet compel. Leadership at Ferrari has historically been earned by winning, not claimed in interviews, and the Tifosi have watched a great many drivers arrive with plans. There is also the simple fact that Leclerc has been quicker than Hamilton across several sessions this weekend, including a sprint podium on Saturday, and has 6 full seasons of institutional knowledge inside that building. If Ferrari were to designate today, purely on merit, the argument would not be as one-sided as the championship table makes it look. So, Hamilton's claim is a claim, not a conclusion. He said try and lead. He hedged it himself. And here is what he did not do, which is the strongest evidence that the sentence was deliberate rather than emotional. He did not blame Leclerc. Read the quote again. He said he lost several seconds behind Charles, and then immediately will take it offline. That is a man declining on live television to escalate against his own teammate. He also opened the same interview by praising the garage. The guys in the garage did a fantastic job, he said. Pit stops, strategy was generally very, very good. That is not the behavior of somebody venting. That is somebody complimenting the execution, naming a single structural failure, refusing to attach a name to it publicly, and then stating an ambition. Every element of that is a choice, and they all point the same way. So what do we actually know? And what are we guessing? We know what he said because it was broadcast and quoted by Sky Sports, Formula One. We know the standings. We know he named the straight line deficit himself with a figure. We know Ferrari rebuilt his setup between Friday and Saturday, and he found 4 places. We know he attacked for a podium to the final lap and did not get it. We know Vasseur, asked about Sunday, answered on strategy and not on hierarchy. What we do not know is how that sentence landed inside Maranello, or whether Ferrari has any intention of treating it as a proposal, or what has been said between the 3 of them since. Hamilton said it goes offline. Offline is where this gets decided, and none of us are invited. Is Hamilton positioning himself as Ferrari's number 1 for the rest of this season? I think that is a legitimate question to ask. And I think the sentence and its timing make it a reasonable one. It is not proof of a campaign, and I am not going to sell you one. He said it once, in one interview, on one difficult Sunday. Ask it. Do not conclude it. But I will leave you with the thing I keep circling back to. He is 41. He has 7 titles already. He does not need an 8th to be what he is, and he has said versions of that himself over the years. There is no version of this where he is doing it for the resume, and a man in that position on an afternoon he finished 4th chose the word lead rather than the word win. Winning is about him, leading is about everyone else in the building. 12 rounds remain, and the next one is Monza, Ferrari's home race on the fastest circuit of the year, where 3 to 5 tenths a lap in a straight line stops being a talking point and becomes the entire weekend. 100,000 people who have very specific views about who leads Ferrari, watching 2 red cars on the same piece of tarmac. If that sentence was real, that is where it starts being tested. So tell me, was that a driver claiming a role he has earned, or a driver claiming one he still has to win? Say it below and predict what Monza gives us, because I want to see who called it. Subscribe so that breakdown lands in front of you. Hit like if you want it done exactly like this one, and until the next one.